Do I want to operate from the mentality of a situationship to build that? Probably not. Probably not the best way to get me the best outcomes that I would look for. And I'm very outcome based. If you're doing things that you're not getting what you want, change your process, change your approach, or consider at least changing some part of it. Because if you're not seeing what you want, then it means some part of your process is flawed. Um, our perspective is not the perspective, it's just the way that we see it. Our bias is really, really powerful to the point that it makes us think that everything we see is exactly what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not true. It's not always true. It doesn't mean you can't have an intuition. It doesn't mean you can't trust how you feel. But we got to bake in a little room to consider an alternative viewpoint. Because I could be wrong. So when I talk to people, even I don't like to talk with always certainty, especially when it pertains to how somebody else feels or what they live through or how they see things. I ask, this is how it appears to me. You tell me, is that what you meant? Because that can save us a lot of hardship and a lot of heartache if we get that clarification before we keep going down this chain of, now I'm upset, now I'm hurt, I'm disappointed, I'm fearful, I'm avoidant. And now my behavior is, I'm guarded. I don't want to hang out with you anymore. I'm going to be hot and cold. You can't build a relationship like that. That's not sustainable. You want somebody to be around you and be able to be their authentic self more often than not. Right? So I have to be very mindful. You have to be very mindful. All of us have to be very mindful that we create the environments to be open, to be honest, to communicate effectively. And when we're trying to seek out somebody, to be thoughtful about how and who we give that opportunity to. Because again, if you said we see the red flags or we see concerns that don't match up with what I'm looking for, don't give them the opportunity or cut it off relatively quickly. When you see that it doesn't match, we need to make that executive decision. Otherwise, I could be setting myself up for that other scenario where I'm basically waiting to be proven that it is what I thought it was going to be. That gives me what we would call a self-fulfilling prophecy, that I said this is what was going to happen, and then everything I do and everything they do is in alignment to make that be true. But that's not healthy. That's not healthy. That just helps us get what we ultimately don't even want. But we're setting ourselves up to get what we don't want. That does not make sense. Hopefully you would agree with me.
Yeah, no, I do completely agree with you. And I think I was thinking of this, to your point of before you even said it, I was thinking about how this is exactly why it's important to be selective, because all that we're describing, it takes a lot of energy, takes a lot of
Yes.
mental and emotional energy to
Yes.
really pay attention and observe someone and get to know them. So I feel like a problem that I had early in life is I just wanted as many friends and as many people around me as possible. And so as a result, I wasn't doing my due diligence and I was willing to tolerate things I shouldn't because I just
Gotcha.
felt like having a big friend group and, looking popular was worth more than like truly being valued and cared for and having like
Understood.
real deep intimate relationships. So I think the point you made about, being thoughtful and intentional about who you allow into your life matters a lot too, and is especially relevant for people in my age range because we are, 25 is around that age where you do start to kind of grow up and shed some of your college friendships and maybe even childhood friendships because you're growing and evolving and changing, and other people may not be doing the same at the same pace, or you're going in different directions from each other. So
Yeah.
I think the point of just being aware that I think it's just reality that quality relationships, you want really quality relationships, most of the time, less is more. Because you
Yes.
really can't, what we're describing, you really can't have that with, a group of 20 people. Like, you're not really going to have a real intimate, like, bond, know each other for real in a dynamic like that.
Yeah. I'll try to make one last example before you wrap to speak to what you just said. I would say quality over quantity would be the theme there. It's kind of like the idea, maybe this is true for women, maybe, but I'll speak for men that I know. especially when we're younger, it can seem to be very desirable, excuse me, to juggle multiple women at the same time. And it can be fun. I'm not going to sit and act like I haven't done it, because I have when I was young too. But I say that because as you get older, to your point, you recognize that you can't invest as much into each person. It's a much wiser strategy. It's like the idea of multitasking, very much in alignment. It's much better of a disposition and a way of approaching things to focus all your effort and energy on one person, and make sure that, if this is your person, great, like keep going. If it's not, okay, cut your losses, maybe do some reflection, and then try again, because you're gonna give the most complete version of yourself. Why is that other way not as good of a strategy, just like multitasking? Because I'm only giving a piece of myself every single time. I'm giving like this little bit of attention and this little bit of attention and this little bit of attention, but at no point do you really get all of my attention. At no point do you get all of my effort. At no point do you get all of who I am. That's not a good strategy, particularly talking about mate selection. That's not a good strategy. If you really want the best outcome, where you're going to find somebody of quality, of value, that you really appreciate, and that you're willing to go through life with this person, I think we should take our time and be much more thoughtful about one person and giving them all of that attention and seeing what comes of it. It doesn't mean it's always going to work, but that's me doing my due diligence, to your point. That's me giving enough effort and enough time to make sure that I've seen this through. I'm not trying to operate based on assumptions. I'm trying to let this person present who they are and learn about who they are, and as well as show who I am. And if that happens to sync up well, maybe we have something. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I now have another question based on what you said. What do you think is, so I agree, and that's typically my dating strategy, where I like to just focus on one person at a time and really get to know them. I really do not like dating multiple people at the same time. I just genuinely don't like it and find it stressful, and it's just not for me. But I've often been told that if you do date like 2 or 3 people at a time, being able to compare them to each other can help you be more objective in terms of who's the better match for you. So I'm curious about your thoughts or your perspective there. Like, what is, and I don't mean like, purposely having like a harem of, a roster, the way it's often described. Like, I don't mean like purposely having a roster just so you always have like, a steady.
Yeah, you're just cycling people through.
Yeah, right. But do you think it is a good strategy to date multiple people at once, at least maybe in the beginning stages, just so you can be more objective? Or is it, what do you think of that?
Sure. I mean, I think there can be a value in, especially when you're first getting started, right? When it's very, very casual, like no expectations. I can see a value and a benefit of maybe having 2 or 3 people that you might be talking to at the same time, because you're not taking it as serious yet, because you're still very much just trying to learn about somebody, right? What would change is as soon as you start to feel a little bit more of a connection, that I'm starting to see that this person is a bit more in alignment with what I'm looking for. Not that these other people, let's just say we're talking about 3 people, right? So one of these people immediately gave me that feeling very quickly, like third date. So now the other 2, they're sort of falling to the wayside. Not that they're bad people. It's just that I feel a stronger connection with you. What I would say is, if I'm going to hit it from that sort of approach, if I had 3, I'm going to immediately put those other 2 to the side and say, you know what? I need to focus on you, because you seem to be more of what I'm looking for. And then being willing to maybe be open about it. I think if you are both engaging in a similar sort of way of approaching dating, it's probably not going to be strange. But to say that, like, yeah, like I really want to focus on you and what we have going on here, because you seem much more in alignment with my values and what I'm seeking for my future. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. However, if somebody told me I don't even want to do that, I just want to do one at a time, I think that's absolutely fine too. I think there could be value to doing both. Again, there's not one way to do things always. So I do see that there would be value in approaching it that way as well. I just think you have to be very intentional. If you're just cycling people, as you said, just to have, they're like, yeah, I got Shelby on Monday, I got Monica on Wednesday, I got Tatiana on Friday. Like that to me is, that could be more about your ego than about you being genuine. If you really want to find somebody, I understand you might have to date more than once, no doubt. But if I'm really starting to feel something with this person, I'm really starting to see that they are more in alignment with what I'm looking for. I think you have to be honest with yourself. It would be wise at that point to cut them off. Yes, you risk losing them. So is the nature of dating.
Yeah.
But if I think I have a better connection with you and I think I have a better shot of this working with you, I would say I think we need to put all our eggs in that basket and really give it a chance.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it's more fair to the other person too, so they're kind of cut loose and able to try to find that on their own.
Sure.
The person that they have an actual real or better bond with, because that's like the primary reason I don't like dating multiple people at the same time, is I don't want to lead anybody on or
Absolutely
confuse anybody. So
no, absolutely. I think it's a very important and poignant question. And, it just goes to the nature of dating. It can be very complicated in how you approach it. I just think, number one, we just have to be very genuine about what we want and what we're looking for. We have to be willing to articulate that to that person, obviously have them do all these things in return. And if we are being honest, I think the process doesn't have to be maybe as long as we think it does to determine if we want to continue seriously dating this person. To go from casual to being much more serious, right? Because that speaks to the heart of what you were speaking about much earlier on in this conversation, talking about situationships. To have a situationship, from my experience, is we don't have those conversations.
Yep, exactly.
We don't even talk about them because I don't really care about what your values are. I don't really care about what you want or what you're looking for. We're keeping this on the most primitive way that we can, which is purely physical attraction. And you fulfill this need, that's cool. And we sort of leave it there. But what we have been talking about evolving from that point is, well, what about when you want something real? What about when you want to build a life with somebody and you really want to build a family with that person? Do I want to operate from the mentality of a situationship to build that? Probably not. Probably not the best way to get me the best outcomes that I would look for. And I'm very outcome based. If you're doing things and you're not getting what you want, change your process. Change your approach, or consider at least changing some part of it, because if you're not seeing what you want, then it means some part of your process is flawed. And we all do it. But I think it's important to be on the same page and, again, be authentic about what you're looking for. So that way, when you are out here trying to find somebody, that you're streamlining the process as much as possible, but you're also giving yourself an honest chance to get to know them and for them to get to know you. So we can, sort of bypass all the maybe the relationships that younger people engage in, or when we're younger, because we don't really know what we want.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I think that's a helpful perspective too. It's just to a point that you have made often. It's not always black and white.
Yes.
There's a lot of gray. There's a lot of messiness, and I also feel like just open conversation and communication is key to really getting on the same page. Because you made a really good point about situationships being like you're just not having those conversations.
No, why would you?
Yeah.
Why would you? It's like, I'm getting what I said I needed, so there's no point. Maybe you felt similarly, or people I know that that's sort of what you're looking for. When you want something real, when we want something real as men, we will move with intention. We will take our time. We will be patient. We will be understanding, because we take that person seriously and we want to take that to the next level, or maybe to the highest level that it can be. So I'm not going to avoid those type of conversations. Now, they may be difficult in the fairness to men, because that's a huge part of why I'm here and why we're talking about this. It is very hard for us, because many of us don't grow up in environments where it's comfortable to engage in these type of conversations. We don't even get the opportunity to get that experience with our own family a lot of times, where dad sits you down and talks to you about it, when mom sits you down and shares a lot about her lived experience. We don't get that. And so it is fundamentally harder for us, not because we're less emotional per se. We're just not allowed to be emotional. And it's really not fair. That's why I challenge that notion all the time. Because to do the work that I do, it would seem counterintuitive, because I didn't get taught to do any of this stuff. I had to learn all this as I got older and really reprogram a lot of what I learned as a child because it was not constructive, it was not helpful, and there's no way in hell I'd be here if I still was operating from that mentality. So we can all change and we can all evolve, in that way. But I think it's imperative for us to be willing to make those adjustments, depending on what we want for our future. So